I wanted to come to the floor today to speak on a different subject, which is to demonstrate my support for the Sportsmen's package compiled by Senator Tester from Montana. I know the bill was discussed on the floor last night, and the request to pass this package of bipartisan bills was objected to, which is horribly unfortunate. And I hope we're going to have the opportunity to vote on the measure before we leave town. Sportsmen and women are an essential part of the fabric of our country, the fabric of my home state of Colorado. This community supports millions of jobs and contributes billions of dollars annually to our economy, and they are often the drivers of our most important conservation initiatives across our rich landscape. While serving on the Senate Agriculture Committee, I've enjoyed working with sportsmen to craft a revamped conservation title in the Farm Bill. Some people forget that the Farm Bill conservation title is the largest single legislative vehicle for the programs and resources that help us conserve private land all across this country and all across the western United States, and enhance vital wildlife habitat across the country. Sportsmen have always played a vital role in crafting that bipartisan title, and that was exactly the way they participated this time as well. And while it's not the reason that I'm here today, I want to talk about Senator Tester's bill. I do want to take the chance to say once again that, in my view, the House of Representatives ought to pass a 5-year farm bill. We passed a bipartisan bill out of this Senate with well over 70 votes, Democrats and Republicans. On the committee, we worked together for over 2 years to create the only bipartisan deficit reduction that's happened in this Congress, in either the House or the Senate. We got rid of direct payments for producers, which was an important reform. We strengthened the conservation title, as I was saying earlier. There is absolutely no reason the House shouldn't pass this bill. And, Madam President, over the break, I traveled 2,500 miles around the state of Colorado, rural communities all over my state, and no one wanted to know what was going on in the presidential election. No one wanted to talk about anything except, why can't the Farm Bill get passed? In modern history, well, there's never been a time in modern history that a committee in the House, in this case the House Agriculture Committee, pass out a bill in a bipartisan way, and it can't even get to the floor for a vote. That's never happened before. Something is wrong over there. And I can tell you that my farmers and ranchers in Colorado, who are going through the worst drought in a generation, want people to knock the politics off and pass this bill. It's bipartisan, it's real deficit reduction, and it's a good bill. We are doing an incredible disservice, as I said, to our farmers and ranchers and also our sportsmen by failing to act on this bipartisan legislation. Madam President, there was a time in my life when I had the chance to live in Montana for a brief time, Senator Tester's home state, and I thought of myself as a sportsman then. I used to fish a lot, chopped a lot of wood out there. And these days, I spend a lot more time on airplanes and chasing my 3 daughters to soccer games. But someday I'll get back there, and that brings me to the importance of this package for our nation's sports women and men. The provisions in Senator Tester's bill represent some of the best bipartisan ideas out there to promote hunting, fishing, and recreational access. Bills from both sides of the aisle that have been hanging around here for a long time and now need to get passed. The measure would require that 1.5% of annual land and water conservation funds go to provide public access to lands for hunting and for fishing. I'm a huge supporter of the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and this provision builds on the fine legacy of that program. The amendment also contains a provision that is homegrown from our sportsmen in Colorado. Section 103 provides certainty and parity for America's bow hunters, that they can cross National Park Service land with their bows to legally hunt nearby lands outside the park boundaries. This access is provided to hunters with firearms, but not to those with bows. Madam President, I started working on this issue over 2 years ago when a Colorado bow hunter encountered a problem. After 14 years of trying, this particular hunter had finally drawn a license to hunt elk in the premium game unit in northwest Colorado. He scouted the unit found the area he wanted to hunt, and he was all set to go until federal officials told him he couldn't cross a narrow strip, a very narrow strip of Park Service land to hunt the BLM land next to it. This is despite the fact that hunters with loaded firearms can cross Park Service land legally and without applying for a permit. The problem with this particular hunter, Madam President, is what brought this issue to my office, but the broader point of the provision is to provide access for our sportsmen and women. We know that we lose thousands of acres of land every day to development, some of it important wildlife habitat. We need to provide all Americans reasonable access to the lands that we have set aside for preservation and wildlife habitat, bow hunters included. That's why I was pleased to increase funding for the Voluntary Public Access Program when we marked up the Farm Bill. And that's why I'm proud to have worked with Senator Tester to include this provision in his package that I hope we'll be voting on soon. The bow hunting provision was carefully tailored to ensure that hunting of wildlife within Park Service boundaries remains illegal. Yet the measure still provides reasonable access, which is so important to the sportsmen in Colorado and across the country. I've received a letter of support for the Bennet Tester bow hunting language from Colorado stakeholder groups across the spectrum, including the Colorado Wildlife Federation, the Rocky Mountain Bighorn Sheep Society, Pheasants Forever, and the Bull Moose Sportsmen's Alliance. And the list goes on. Madam President, I'd like to submit this letter of support from the Colorado groups.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. The overall sportsman's package from Senator Tester is also widely supported, ranging from the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership to the Boone and Crockett Club to the National Rifle Association. The Tester bill represents a bipartisan package of common sense bills that will benefit our nation's sportsmen and women. And I want to thank Senator Tester for his leadership on behalf of the West and urge a yes vote. Madam President, I deeply appreciate your letting me come to the floor today to talk about this legislation, and I'll simply close by saying that it is my fervent hope that once this election is over, some 45 days from now, that we will come back to this chamber, Republicans and Democrats together, and work together to avoid surfing over this fiscal cliff that would be so damaging to this economy. And people at home know something that people here have not yet figured out, which is even if you believe that you were always right on your side, or had a monopoly of wisdom on your side, which I don't, but some people seem to, even if you believed it, we cannot accomplish this meaningful deficit reduction without doing it in a bipartisan way. It is impossible to do it without doing it in a bipartisan way. And people at home actually want to see it bipartisan because they frankly don't believe in either party's go-it-alone strategy when it comes to the debt and deficit. So my hope is that this election will clear the air, we'll get back to work, and that before January we'll have something convincing to say to the American public on this subject.